is Rob Thompson. I'm the host of the 5% Club, and 5% Club are those that participated in college athletics. There's only 5% that move on from high school to college, and then Gary Reasons here is part of the 0.001% that played in the NFL. Not only played in the NFL, but played in the NFL for a decade, which is just like superhuman. And we want to talk about that a little bit. But Gary, thanks for joining. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Rob. It's good to visit with you.
We talk a lot about that transition from being a college athlete and to business and to being an entrepreneur. And just share your story, because it definitely is unique.
It's really been a dream for me, and I've actually got a novel in the work, a book in the works. It's called Texas Football Dream, and really what we're talking about today is that dream, the dream of every kid here in the state of Texas who plays Texas high school football to move on to the collegiate ranks and ultimately into the National Football League. I checked all the boxes, and it really was a dream come true. I had some really tremendous things happen to me along the way, and some accolades, a couple of Super Bowl championships, these kinds of things back here. And I've been very blessed with the sport of football and what it has brought to me, my family, and really a great start to life.
What was it that, when you starting off, when you're kind of going through that recruiting process out of high school into college, and then certainly in college, at one point did you start seeing kind of there may be something after college? I mean, you weren't you didn't play at a Power 5 school, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of came through, so you automatically had a chip on your shoulder coming out. You had an unbelievable career as a three-time All-American, and probably the only one to be able to do that at the FCS level. And what was your mindset like when you were coming out? Did you feel like you had something to prove at that point?
Well, let's take it back a little bit and let people understand that back in when I started playing college football was the fall of 1980. And when I graduated, and was in the spring of 1984. So 4 years playing as a freshman, and without the technology age, communication was a little bit different back then. And so the scouts for the NFL, for each team, and really for a couple of different scouting groups, came through most of the universities. And myself, I went to Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana, which is in northern Louisiana. Really not a Power 5 school, like you said, but basically a Division I college football program, but at the FCS level. And so what happens is that we just didn't have a large number of recruiters coming through there, or scouts for the NFL, but we had some key ones. And good for me is that I was also on a team that really had some really superlative players. One of the guys that was drafted prior to me coming out of Northwestern State was a gentleman named Joe Delaney. Joe was a running back, and he was drafted in 1981 by the Kansas City Chiefs in the second round. Became all NFL caliber running back. But unfortunately, he died in the offseason after his first year in a tragic incident in North Louisiana, trying to save children who were drowning as well in a pond, and Joe unable to swim. Well, along with Joe, I also played with a guy who was our quarterback, Bobby Hebert. Bobby went on to play in the USFL. He was the quarterback for the first championship team in USFL history, the Michigan Panthers, and then he went on to a nice career in the National Football League as a quarterback with the Falcons and ultimately the New Orleans Saints. Having players like that come out just before me, I think helped, because the scouts were coming to Natchitoches to see those two guys, and here I am, a guy really not greatly heralded player coming out of high school. Again, back 1970s and 1980, when I graduated high school, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the way to communicate. And myself, I was the first ever player to earn a full scholarship out of Crowley High School, South Fort Worth. My high school had not had a guy come out of there to play college football. So just think, why would the scouts come to Crowley? There hasn't been anybody come out of here yet. So that was kind of the things that we had to have happen. And, I was a late recruit coming out of high school because, our coaches really were inexperienced. It's not their fault, but just inexperienced on how to present or call and make connections with universities about a student athlete like myself. And, it all worked out for me in the end, but overall it was kind of a struggle, a journey. And, I wound up playing at a great university, met my wife in that town. It's kind of a dream come true. So I have lived, I call it the Texas football dream, and the book is forthcoming this fall. Get there. So moms and dads, they're the ones that are putting recruiting efforts together for their kids get out of high school at all sports. And really, there's the tools are there so that they can market and bring their kids to prominence. And so that they are at the eyes of the recruiters in all different types of sports. So I think that there's great stuff with technology, which has come forward today.
What was it like with your mindset on thinking about playing in New York City, all of those opportunities around you from a business perspective? At what point did you start thinking about, I need to use this opportunity, this leverage, and this massive network in the business world in New York City, that you started had to think about what kind of that next thing?
Well, I would always think about the opportunity as it was presenting itself to me, for me to be in New York and be a part of an opportunity to, one, be a part of a great franchise with the New York Football Giants. And then secondly, what am I going to do with the opportunity given to me here in this community? And it's a large one, 60, 70 million people in the New York City metropolitan area. It's a pretty wide space to kind of make your way. But it was one of those things that, Rob, early on in my career, and remember, we're back in the 1980s, okay, 1984. At the end of my rookie season, I'll just kind of fast forward to this, is that I first got out of the league, in my first year. You never know how long you're going to play. And that's what happens with most any NFL player. So I was very business and career focused forward. And back then, it was still in vogue to have off-season jobs. So we would play football in the fall, we'd go home, and we would get a second job. So I got my Series 7 and 63 securities license. I became a licensed securities broker and dealer. And I worked out of Houston with Oppenheimer and Company, out of their home there, their office there, at a home in North Houston. And I lived in Houston and also New Jersey. So I did that for 2 to 3 years. And unfortunately, October of '87, the first market crash corrected. And I was dealing with, managed funds for individuals. And, it was tough for me to see families just losing, all of their hard saved earnings through a market crash with no fault of ours or anybody's, but that's what happened. So I stepped out of that business. But to answer your question, I've always been business focused and mindful of, your career could end at any time with an injury, with with the stroke of a pen. Hey, you're traded here or you're cut or anything. The coach decides. It just worked out that it was the right time for me to be in New York with the right group of players, and we grew together from starting in 1984. I think that was the best class, when looking back at it, the best draft class probably in the history of the New York Giants. To have myself, Carl Banks come in, William Roberts, Jeff Hostetler, guys that were really just going to be, stalwarts there for a long time and build the nucleus together, along with some of the already established talent like Harry Karsten and Lawrence Taylor, quarterback Phil Simms. Those are the things that, you kind of build around. And head coaches that we had, our head coach that we had with Bill Parcells, he's assembling pieces, and Bill was an orchestrator of that. And little did he know that he had a young coach on his staff that was going to turn out to be something special. Our linebacker coach and defensive coordinator was Bill Belichick early on in his career. So we all grew up together, Bill Belichick and our defense and our linebacker group. We grew up together and we cemented. And I think that, it's pretty good consensus that our linebacker core was, if not the best of all time, one of the best of all time. And that's very prideful to me.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I didn't know Belichick was your linebacker coach at that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
He got
Yeah,
started, cut his teeth on defense with us.
yeah. Well, that's a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yes, it is.
How about that transition? So you already laid the foundation. You know, you're in the financial world. You're in the you're in the capital of global capital of the finance world right there in the city. Um, what was that transition like then after you're done playing? Was it smoother, or you were just you were ready for the moment and because some guys can't turn it off. Were you like, you got to that finish line, took off the helmet, and like, thank God that's over?
Well, I started in the securities business, and what I learned also was I had another teammate who was in the securities business, and he went down the path of continuing that post career, post playing days, and I didn't really want to follow that world, and here's why: is that I then saw what most people in the Northeast did. They commuted for an hour and a half into the city and an hour and a half out of the city on a daily basis, working in Wall Street or one of the financial services groups there. And man, what a toll that takes on you, what a toll it takes on your life. And I decided to make a change, and I didn't go that path. Actually, during the latter part of my career, and then the 89 and 90 era, at times, I actually started a sports marketing company in New York while I was playing. And I actually created a luncheon series. It was called Executive Sports Network. And what we did was, on our day off on Tuesday, I hosted an MC and invited teammates to come to a very posh boutique executive luncheon of 100 members only. And we had Fortune 500 companies as our members, and they could bring a guest. So there you are, very intimate, 150 to 200 people at most, rubbing shoulders with us. And then we would talk about the game on the previous Sunday, show some highlights, all those things. So we used a sports marketing thing to try to enrich relationships with people. And really, when you come down to business, Rob, and what I've learned over the years is everything is relationship driven. And how can you create long lasting relationships and be able to bring value to those relationships, or as a result of those relationships, whichever way it delivers from what you're doing. So I had that part of it there. And then I got into the technology world immediately when I got out of the game. But one thing that I will share with you, that my last season was 1992. I kind of took the 93 season off, kind of resettled my family back in Texas. And in 94, I started a broadcast career with ABC Sports, covering college football all over the country, working with some great teams. And I'm still doing that today. 30 years. This is my 30th year as a college football TV game analyst, broadcaster, and it's been a way to stay close to the game, be a part of something that I know and love, and I just breathe it. And you hear how I talk. I can talk all day long about football, about X's and O's, and stories about players and coaches. I just love to communicate like that, and it's something that it's really just a passion of mine. And so I've done this for 30 plus years, while having a very productive executive business career that I'm very proud of, to be in the technology space and also in the healthcare space, which I am currently today.
If you ever had anything that you got a shot at doing over, and I know we all look back at some of the things we've done in our careers in life and stuff that now, if you had a chance to do anything over, what would it be?
I would have probably planned, and this is something that I would have done, I should have planned to be more present in the New York City metropolitan area post my playing days. I purposely chose to move my family to Texas and raise them there, and wouldn't change that at all. But I think I would plan some time to still be more prominent and more visible in that area, and then nurturing those relationships, being involved and creating new relationships with, the mecca of our country is essentially in the Northeast. You understand that, but there's other pockets of business enterprise elsewhere, but in the Northeast, it really makes things happen. And so being a part of that, I think I would have jumped up there a little bit more. So for current players, guys that want to settle back in their markets, but if they do have a way to stay in the Northeast and the New York marketplace and be a part of that vibe for some part, I think that would be something I would have added to the mix that I didn't do.
I totally agree. If you've never been in that market, worked in that market, or lived there before, it's hard to understand there's an energy there. It's a one-stop shop. You got everybody right there in a 15-mile radius. Yeah, I could definitely understand because you spent a lot of time building those relationships.
Right. They're still long lasting, but there's things that move and change, and time changes, positions change, but just being on that pulse, and there's a vibe. Whenever I travel back to the Northeast, I feel the vibe of the New York City metropolitan area, and it's really pretty cool. And most people are either Giants fans or Jets fans or both, or and the split houses and all those different things that people talk about up there. Either way, we take it in as fun and we enjoy it. And I love to meet with fans and see people. And when I pass through airports, oftentimes I see Giants families, got their gear on. I'll mosey over to one of the families and put a Super Bowl ring on a little kid's finger, and boy, you make their world. I know how impressionable I was as a youngster growing up, and I try to share those types of experiences with young people all the time. And even as part of the Texas Football Dream concept here, I'm hoping to create a speaking tour in small communities all around Texas to start with, and then elsewhere to talk about this with youth and things like I'm talking to you, Rob, about today, and share knowledge and be able to transfer knowledge to people is something that I have a calling, I think, to do. I have to understand, first of all, where we're coming from and what happened. So myself, I'll take an example. So I came from a family that wasn't wealthy. I mean, we were just your basic run of the mill family. My dad was in the carnival business of all things. And so, crazy, I grew up in that environment. We didn't have money.
Gosh.
So when I went to college, I earned a full scholarship, had room, had board, had meals and everything taken care of at school, but I had no spending money, zero, had no dollars, had no money from mom and dad coming in because there really wasn't any. So that today is still in place with NCAA rules, is that you as a student athlete can't have a job, can't have a part-time job, can't earn something. What they were trying to do way back when was they were trying to stop the handoffs, the handovers of the $100 bills, that they would give to these featured athletes. There's some good stories and bad stories about all that stuff. But yep. I think, Rob, with NIL and what is happening today, we're going to see a cosmic shift continuing, and it hasn't slowed down yet, of platforms, of ways to monetize, of ways to bring yourself into the workforce, of ways to market yourself. All these different tools are going to be there for the benefit of student athletes, male, female, tier 1 players and tier 3 players. It doesn't really matter who or where you're at. You've got a great moniker of the 5%. The 5% are those student athletes that play at the collegiate level. That is an amazing accomplishment in itself, regardless. So you've got the goods, you've got the chops, you've got the ability. You just need to find it and retool it and generate it. And so if you use the NIL solutions and the platforms available to student athletes now and in the coming years, there's going to be a lot different economic opportunities. There's going to be a lot different business opportunities and really social integration opportunities for people to take advantage of their platform, their collegiate platform, or if they get into the professional ranks, even a heightened platform. So everyone has that. We look at social media today with TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and all those things. They're all social media platforms that give everybody a way to market themselves in some level or fashion. You just got to be creative and do those. And I think NIL is another extension in its own right of the social media platforms, because it brings true value to the end user, which is the student athlete.
Yeah.
Well, I talk about it a little bit. I'm not the guru on everything that's out there, but I've got a pretty good pulse on most things, having a sports and media technology background, and the technology stuff that goes around some of these things, as I've shared with you previously privately about some other platform solutions in NIL that are in the marketplace. It's something that I see as when I'm talking on a college football broadcast or whatever, I can layer some of these comments in It's interesting. I was on a state high school, Texas high school game here for Fox Sports in Texas Valley Sports last year, and I had this little nugget soundbite about an offensive lineman going to the University of Texas who had chosen to go there, and immediately on guys who are scholarship players, there was a $50,000 per player number that was given to all scholarship offensive linemen. Okay, that's one group that nil goes to them, that to that specific group from a donor. And those are the kinds of things that are now happening all across America, all across the university space. How can you be creative, and how can you bring student athletes in there? And not that you're going to pay these guys, but give them an incentive to come there. And then whether they get the funds immediately, or it's proactively, or you have to wait a little bit, and those kinds of things, all that'll be worked out. But I think that there's reason to make those mentions, and I chose not to use that on the broadcast because I didn't want to. It was still early in the game. I didn't really want to splash that out there and kind of make the telecast with Texas high school football. It's kind of a sanctimonious part here in the state of Texas of it's living, breathing entity. I mean, it really is. I mean, you can it's tangible. You can touch it. It seems like with people, when you go into these small communities, first thing they're going to tell you about, hey, about our football team here. Those boys are good. They're really good. Yeah, I know all about it. So there's a lot of good stuff coming, and more to come, I think. It's still going to be just handfuls of players that are looking at really, really large sums. But there'll be some that'll just be in range. But so the ones that are having a lot of potential revenue early on in their post high school days career, first of all, you have to have a plan, and it's got to be with parents, it's got to be with fiduciaries, it's got to be with legal fiduciaries. In my mind, are financial representatives. So you have to have those things in place, and I think some of the nil solutions, in concert with some of the ways that universities are helping student athletes navigate the nil waters, are bringing those things together. And I think that is a good thing. And it's going across the board to all student athletes can utilize those services. And, if they get those bigger dollars, then you have those resources. Most of them are going to be, just average spending money in my estimation for the bulk of the student athletes that have any kind of a nil opportunity. I think most of it is just going to be mostly spending money and just comfortable career at a collegiate level. That's what I would think is going to happen. I may be completely wrong, but I think that's probably going to happen. But there's still going to be those superstars that are going to they're going to get some tremendous money, and it's showing right now. So to make the plan, get a family, talk with your family, talk with some qualified representatives, and make sure that you have that checked. But here's the thing I would tell the student athletes: don't lose sight of what's bringing you here. Put the work in, athletically, academically, and even spiritually. I mean, because a lot of people, they're trying to pull themselves together. If you lose focus on any of those things, what's the most important thing to you? You got to do those things. Academics is number one, because if you can't make the grades at any university, I can't help you. There's nothing that you can do, because there are regulations and they're there for a reason. They want you to be a student first and athlete second. Student first, athlete second, and that's fine. But most guys can have that and handle that, and ladies too as well. So they have resources at these universities to be able to assist you, to be able to make sure that you're going to come away. Their goal is to get you to have a degree. They want you to come out of there. Graduation rates are something that coaches are recruiting and mentioning, at a high level, because they want to be able to recruit. Yeah, 85% of our senior class are graduating this year, and the rest are graduating next year. Those are the things that are meaningful. When you hear those, you're saying, okay, well, I'm on track for this. This is what I'm going to do. So, when I came out of high school, well, the thing that drove me the most was education. I wanted to get an education from a college. No one in my family had ever attended any level of college whatsoever. I was the first one out of my family to do that. And I take very, very much pride in that. Post, my playing days and everything, I've raised my family, and my wife and I, we've raised three children, and all three of them were athletic, and all three of them were in collegiate under some level of scholarship, but they all came away with degrees. And I'm very proud, more proud of that than really almost anything, because they've now cemented themselves with an opportunity to leverage what they've learned and brought to bear from their hard work. And it's going to give them a platform for them to move forward. And they're past the collegiate playing days and middle days and all that stuff, but they're in the workforce. But, that's just a pride that a parent has to have that, create that legacy. And then I think that their children as well, and my grandchildren will move forward in a much better light.
The 5%ers, you guys, you got a whole 5% club coming out of that family.
We got it. We're blessed to have a great family.
I don't know what I'm more interested in at this point now to talk about than either Bill Belichick or your family that came from the carnival of business. That to me, that's a book in and of itself.
I think back, my youth. I was born in Chicago. My dad was from Tennessee, but he wound up living in the Chicago area where he met my mother. And he being an outdoor carnival business, he owned his own business. He was an entrepreneur. He was a man who had not a concession stand, but the games. He set up basically a tent and games, and he operated those. And we had people that worked for the family and so forth, and he operated those. And this would be a week to week movement, usually starting in the spring and going through a summer season and into the fall season. You don't operate in that world in the winter, because nobody's going outside for cold weather. So spring to fall, spring, summer, fall is basically where the reign of that. So my dad would travel, and he would be gone, and he just kind of moving there. I would join him in the summers in Chicago area, and I remember early days of being part of that, opening and closing, standing up these we call them joints. Awesome. They call them carnival stands, but they're joints. That's what the carnies talk about them. And anyway, so standing those things up and then tearing them down after Saturday night on the last day, and then you're packing it up, putting it on the truck and trailer, and then going to the next location. It was a life that was a bit of a nomad, but at the same time, back then it was a pretty decent living. But you have to carry yourself through the winter because there's no income coming in at that point. So, but it was something I grew up in as a young kid. And I don't know what that made of me. I just hard work, because it really was hard work. It was nothing more than that, because you're dealing with the public, you're dealing with communication, you're dealing with capturing funds, and everything, and all of the above. And I think that was a pretty unique upbringing for me, and it gave me with just a little bit different perspective on some things that are out there in the workplace. I wouldn't want to do that job again. That's way back when, and I think I don't want to go there. I love it. Texas Football Dream. It's basically going to chronicle my life and some of my experiences, and talk about just like we're talking about here, high school, college, professional accolades, all these different things that have happened and occurred to me, my thoughts, and also go into the business world and business and being some of the teachings that I can do, and being a part of where I've come from. And there's companies out there that I meet with, and I hear the same thing. They love athletes. They love athletes to come into their business because they know what type of person it is to be an athlete. An athlete can overcome adversity. An athlete can plan, can train, can really prepare well, and they've got a plan of how to succeed. That's what most employers are looking for. People that have an initiative. You don't become a collegiate athlete without self-initiative and self-motivation, without self-drive. And that's the thing that's kind of the magic in the bottle, and it's quantifiable in a group, which are the collegiate athletes. And so a lot of people want collegiate athletes as part of their employee base, oftentimes in leadership roles, so that they can share that quote moxie with a lot of their coworkers, at least have some commonality there to bring that to bear. So being a collegiate athlete in this 5% club, Rob, is really it's a feather in the cap of these student athletes that they're not even thinking about right now. They're just trying to compete, and that's what they should do, get their education. But really, what has made them what they are today is unique. It's different. It gives them a leg up. And that's why interviews go well sometimes for these guys, more so than perhaps someone else who is not an athlete. But that doesn't mean that the other person isn't qualified and can do as well. But athletes being an athlete gives an executive an opportunity to say, this person has these qualities. They wouldn't have been this all-state performer, whether it's male or female in their sport. And they wouldn't have gone on to play collegiate sports without having these traits. It's born within that athlete. And, those are some of the things that I'll be talking about within the Texas Football Dream and in my speaking tour that'll be about going on this fall and be a part of these things. So pulling out all these little nuggets and things, it's just fun to do and share, with people, and I hope to share it quite a bit over the next few years. Hey, Rob, let me close with this. I'm a businessman first too, right? So I also have a company. It's called Pro Athletes Team, and we're former professional athletes and business associates. We're under an umbrella that I manage and operate. And we have some healthcare solutions, and one of them is right behind my shoulder here. It's called remote patient monitoring, and what it does is allows Medicare members, this is brand new, Medicare members to measure their vital signs at home, not in the doctor's office, but at home every single day on a daily basis. So go to rpmbypat.com, rpmbypat.com, and you can register. Medicare members can register right there. Or if you're, listen to this as a young person, your family, your parents or grandparents. That's just a little selfish plug.
No, it's not selfish at all. I think I'm sitting there like, oh man, can I get this for my parents while I'm sitting,
Yes, your parents, Rob. You should encourage your parents to go to the website, read through it thoroughly, and they can register right there. I'm just getting started with this over the last 2.5, 3 months, and there's been gangbusters with the inroads we're making with large groups and organizations to share this with the masses of Medicare members, and because most doctors don't even realize that this is available for their patients, and so we're the messengers.
Oh.
rpmbypat.com, remote patient monitoring. It's rpmbypat.com.
That's 5% Club Podcast very first sponsor, ladies and gentlemen. I love it, Gary. Thank you so much. You're a true legend, and I would say that when I was in college and following the Giants and we were rooting for you, we're like, who is this son of a bitch running around all over the field? And it was Gary Reasons.
I did my best, and it turned out well. We got a couple of championships. These two teams, this team and this team back here, Super Bowl 21 and 25 with me and the Giants. I just count my blessings every day. Every time I visit with New York Giants fans, it's just a joyous time. And then that leads to opportunities, and that's what I've always, found with the successful sports life. Just the opportunities will present themselves when you're out meeting and greeting people, and that's what I love to do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You're definitely a legend, and I thank you so much for taking the time and visiting with me for an hour today. I do.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Gary. That's Gary Reasons. I'm Rob Thompson. You're watching 5% Club Podcast. See you later.